Hi.
So I just want to get a sense of how it's going. I know that each of you are in slightly different places in the Atrium work. And hello, Jeffrey. Just getting started here. Um, I wanted to get a sense of how people are doing in the Atrium work. How it's going. Is it useful? Is it helpful? Are you puzzled? Are you what's the someone chime in? Someone help me out here. Because I was telling Pleiades this morning, I was like, I don't know what we're going to talk about today because I kind of want to make this more about you and what you need
Okay.
with this work. Yes, Mazad.
Uh, I found a major change in myself recently. Previously, I usually get upset very easily from situations, from people, but I think I'm now more coping with all the things around me, and I don't get upset as fast as before.
Hmm.
Right.
Is that due to the aspects of the work that we're doing?
Yes, I think. Uh, Although I have the problem of getting distracted during the meditation time, usually,
Yeah.
but I think it helps. It helps. The visualization helps me.
Is it outside distractions or inside distractions during the meditations?
Inside distraction.
Inside, yeah. Yeah.
My mind um, um, goes on different subjects, and I have to bring my attention constantly and become aware of what I'm doing.
Right. Right. Yeah. In the 1 second, please. In the diamond meditations, we kind of use that, don't we? Use that aspect of watching. It occurred to me. I don't know how doable this is, but it occurred to me that another way that you could do a diamond meditation would be to close your eyes and visualize a circle in front of you, and then cut that circle in half, throw away part of it, and make a smaller circle, and cut that in half and throw away part of it and make a smaller circle, and keep doing this, right, until you're down to a quantum singularity, if you will, yeah, of your attention. That's kind of the nature of diamond also, isn't it? It's that something indescribable there, but uh, it's the something behind the something, right? So it's okay to play with these meditations. More importantly, the meditations and the practical exercises are really designed to try and get you on the frequency of these gem stations. Um, and really, I'm learning about it too, actually. And what's interesting to me in this regard is that there, I haven't found anything that can't be applied to one of the gem stations. I mean, it's that universal. Yeah. And think about it. For example, if you take Thoth, or Tahuti was the actual name, right? The Egyptian god of scribes and knowledge and things like that. That's a star ruby. It's a star ruby expression. Yeah? It's that projection out into things. Anyway. Yeah, so do try and use it, but get creative with it too if you need to. The more important point is just to be on the frequency of it. Yeah, good. Okay, I'm glad that it's helping for you though in your life. That's good. Yeah. Who else? Any questions regarding the papers that you're
Yes,
reading?
I'll go next. I read the Star Ruby.
Mm,
When I read it, I had kind of goosebumps go down my hands. So it's like it was just reading it felt really good. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to
yeah.
practice too much that day. A couple of days later, I did practice it, and maybe I had set my expectations a little too high.
Hmm.
So that the practice wasn't as impressive. It was very, very good. It was very, very good, and I think I'll just have to do it some more. So for me, it's going slow.
Okay.
I am probably the laggard here. I'll probably be behind everybody
Hmm.
as I come up. So, but it's going. I did finally get around to actually starting something, so that's good.
Yeah. Which exercise are you referring to? Because it
Just
keeps going in cycles.
yeah, the visualization of the diamond and the visualization of the ruby in
Ah,
near my pineal glands. So
yeah.
I just did that. I tried to do it. I read about it, and that really felt really interesting. And then I did it once, but again, I'm just short on time, and so
Yeah.
I haven't been able to focus on it and do it enough. And so, but
Yeah.
to Mazat's point, um, I initially started off with the distractions being internally,
Mm,
and at this point, I am at the point where I'm intentionally going somewhere where it is not quite, because I want to deal with the external. Like my internal distractions seem to be quietened,
mhm.
but now I'm making myself uncomfortable by sitting in the kitchen when mom's walking around, cooking, making coffee, because I want to see how my mind deals with that.
Yeah.
And at some point, I'll take that and I'll go to a completely sensory deprived area. And I think when I do that, my meditation is going to be more powerful, because now I'm more in tune with just not what's inside, but also outside. And
Yeah.
I think
Good point.
maybe I'm doing this too early. Maybe I need to get much better at meditation before I start doing it. But that's okay. I feel
Yeah.
like I'll progress on a lot of ways. I think you mentioned, right, the three things, not the mistake. The first one, who goes here and there and goes tries things around, and then the growth seems to go nowhere. But eventually, the growth is happening across the board.
Mhm.
It's not one track, it's several tracks going, so it might seem slow,
Ah,
but when it
cool.
comes
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
it's going to be far more powerful,
Right.
because it's balanced. There isn't a weak spot. There is no. I'm trying to eliminate the weaknesses first. I'm trying to get everything to a average level across the board for everything.
Right.
So I'm trying to do that. Anyway, that's sort of where I'm going. I'll shut up, let other people talk.
No, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that. The idea of going to a noisy place that's distracting and more difficult to meditate in is really a star sapphire approach, but it's an intentional star sapphire. And the reason why I say that is because it's to do with resistance, setting resistance for yourself. You see, star ruby is that eternal expansion, right? Ever expanding. Star sapphire is that eternal compression. Yeah, it's the equal and opposite aspects in there.
I
But yeah,
just got access to Star Sapphire. I haven't read it yet. I just got access to it
yeah,
today, so I'm behind on
yeah.
that too.
Okay, good. All right. Who else wants to have a go? Is there any questions looming? This is good for me because it gives me a sense of how this is sitting with everyone. Trust me,
I
I'd
have
be
a
surprised.
question.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, Recently, I was searching and reading about the constellations,
Mm,
and I want to know how much we are um, under these under the effect of the constellation we born. For example, I found something in myself. I'm a Taurus. I was born on May, and I found I don't know how much I know it's right about myself, but
mm,
I don't know how much it's right about other Tauruses. Uh, for example, uh, I want to start a new project and I'm very enthusiastic about it, but it's very hard for me to move on and start it. And recently, I have found that it's a main characteristic of uh, those people who born in the month of May. So I want to know if there is anything that I can help myself to resolve this problem.
sure. So yeah, I mean, a couple things come to mind, right? I don't think the value in astrology is the identification of types as much as it is the how to put this, almost a guide of what to fill in, right? Because part of a personal development journey would be to become undefinable in that aspect as a human, right? You might be born under certain fates and certain influences, but as you develop and grow, you bring to yourself those other traits, those other qualities that you may not have. Yeah. So you could look at it from the standpoint of, you know, as a Taurus, taking those various, sorry, someone's trying to jump in, taking those various traits and looking at the opposites and seeing, you know, what's the opposite sign? What other elements and aspects can I bring into myself? And in the end, become the 13th sign, if that makes sense. Yeah. From a astrology gets complicated when you get beyond the idea of, you know, Taurus is this and Aries is that. And the reason why is because it was really to do with various tensions and forces that the planets were exerting at like the time of your formation, at the time of your birth, and so on. So, you know, because of this precession of the equinoxes, from a star standpoint, right, the constellations overhead, they're not in the same place that they used to be, you see. So I'm not helping. I see this. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe Maza, I'll repeat your question to see if we can hone in on what exactly you're looking for.
The thing I need more is to know how can I change the features I don't want in my character.
I wouldn't do that yet. It's like going out and buying a computer and not knowing anything about a computer, and then trying to add various things to it and subtract various things to it as almost an experiment. Yeah. I mean, imagine, right? You go to the store, you've never owned a computer, you don't know anything about computer, and you bring it home and you go, you know, what would happen if I put toast in it instead, right? I'm missing toast in my computer. There's no toast in the computer, right? You see, that's kind of the approach, because it takes a whole lot of self-examination and a whole lot of self-knowledge before you begin to change anything. There's a reason you are the way you are. And I will say something. If it wasn't enough, you probably wouldn't be here in this meeting. Yeah. You start tinkering around with things and start putting toast where it doesn't belong, and you end up ruining, right, what it is that you are in essence. So consider it at least. Don't change for the sake of changing, and please don't change for the sake of, you know, society says that you should be more this or more that, right? Yeah. That would be my better advice in that regard.
Merci. Oh, I said in Farsi. We say merci in Farsi when we want to say thank you. It's like merci in
French.
French. Yes.
Yeah. They say that in
The same in Istanbul, mostly.
Oh,
Western Turkey, we say merci.
Yeah.
merci.
Can you hear her?
Yes, I heard her.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Someone else jump in. How are you doing with this? Yeah. Clarity.
I found the Star Sapphire lesson 2 really useful from looking at things from the other person's perspective. And that's really been helpful. So, yeah, when we've had an argument...
We don't argue. You argue. A bit of sex, Molly.
But to try and see it from his point of view.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's been really useful.
Yeah.
And I think it's been useful for you as well.
Yeah.
You know what that's tied to on a deeper level is the roles of life. Do you know what I mean by the roles of life?
No.
It's this aspect, right? I mean, think about it from this standpoint. People go out and buy lottery tickets, for example, and they're always shocked when they don't win, but they keep doing it month after month, year after year, you know? And if it is in their role, in their planetary role of life, then they will. If it's not, then they won't.
Yeah.
Their planetary role, most of them, are to buy lottery tickets without ever winning, you see, so that someone else can, right? I don't go buy lottery tickets because I do know that it's not part of my role to stumble into millions of dollars, do you see? Now, what I mean by that as far as a role of life is you can think about it a little bit more abstractly, that everyone on the planet has a particular role, right, that they fill. If a great musician dies, another one is born to take its place. You see, just as a role of life, there will always be someone, for example, or multiple someones doing a work like this. You know, if it's a role, you can step outside of that role, but the idea is that it's not personal to the individual. And all of the roles from a planetary standpoint, so that she can generate the kind of energy that she needs from humans, to feed her baby, is absolutely vital. So when you find yourself in disagreement with somebody, it can be helpful to also just take it from the standpoint of their view is necessary. Their view is absolutely necessary. Yeah. Even in your opinion, even if in your opinion it's incorrect, it's still absolutely vital that they hold that view. Do you understand what I mean by taking it out of the idea of being personal with it and putting it into more of an objective realm of, that's required, that's required, that's required?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's quite an art, isn't it, to be able to argue for the opposite. You feel a certain way, you find yourself in this argument with somebody. It's interesting to put yourself in that and actually try to believe it, try to argue from that standpoint. Now, we talk about the idea of the star ruby having this kind of fundamental aspect of one's true self in it, one's true will in it. I guarantee you that by arguing against your own position, if it's real, it will still win out in the end. Yeah, it'll still win out in the end. In the early days of the Eman, we used to say, or it used to be said, I should say, that, take it away, try to disprove it, right? Do you remember this? No one ever did it, but you see, you argue against something, and that will, if it's true, that will help it grow. Yeah. If there wasn't resistance, plants wouldn't grow. They don't grow well in space, They get weird. Right? Plants don't grow well in space.
Yeah.
It requires that kind of resistance. Now, the art of mastery in the realm of Star Sapphire, from this regard, is to be able to do so artfully. Because every time intention arises in a person or even in the universe, something has to come oppose it. Right? Otherwise, it can't form up. How do I describe this? If there was no opposition, if there was no contraction, if there was no star sapphire in the universe, then star ruby would never have a chance, okay? Because it would just dissipate endlessly. It has to have something to bounce off of in order to gain strength and momentum and grow and become more solid, yeah?
Pierce, if I may add here, I think light is defined by darkness. Right? You can't really say something is light until you know what darkness is. So light by itself doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There's no light, there's no dark. There has to be light for there to be dark. There has to be dark for there to be light. You can't just be, right all the time, because then there's no concept of wrong. So there's no concept of right.
Yeah, absolutely. From a scientific standpoint, anyway, even the idea of light, when you look up at the stars at night, if the universe didn't have an ending to it, if it didn't have a compression layer around it, you would see nothing but light. This is how scientists know that the universe is not infinite, right? Because if it were infinite, every point in the sky that you look would at some place in the universe terminate in a star, if it was endless, or infinite, I should say, right? So it ends somewhere. What happens if you take a spaceship and go out in any particular direction? You know what'll eventually happen? You'll wind up right where you started. Yeah. You'll wind up right where you started, even though you think you're going in a straight line, because you will hit that star sapphire, which will put you back into it. Can't escape it. Now, it is growing slightly, though, right? Star Ruby is actually a little bit more powerful in this universe right now than Star Sapphire, because we live in a universe of which law of thermodynamics is this? Where it's the result can't come before the cause. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Where's
one
Sam
of
when
it.
we need him?
Huh?
Where's Sam when we need him?
He's right there. He's thinking. He's puzzling.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking,
Well, regardless, okay? You understand what I mean, right? That's the kind of universe we live in, where it's action, then reaction, not reaction before action, okay? So Star Ruby is always going to be slightly ahead of Star Sapphire. Star Sapphire responds to it, you see. Good, clarity. I'm making it your job, all of you today, to pull it out of me, all right, based on need, instead of me force feeding.
The other
Yeah.
thing I found really useful was the love, light, and life exercise. That was
Yeah.
something else. That just was, yeah.
Yeah. In what way? How is that useful?
I just, it's like sometimes when I go for a walk, I just go for a walk, but I find that if I've slowed down and just look at things and people when they're coming towards me, I get a lot of hellos and how are you and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's like when you radiate those things, people respond to say hello to me a lot more than if I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's great feedback, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Just in the way that you look at people and the way that you radiate towards them.
Yeah.
And it's such a service to humanity as well. Most of the time people are not even conscious enough to be able to have a radiation other than just sleep. Right. So good. Yeah, very good. But I think it's great that you're actually noticing that people respond to that.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about the unseen worlds?
That some things I'm attracting something from the unseen to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I've also noticed that sometimes when I go shopping, people come up to me. It's like a little while back, someone said to me, they were looking at cards and asked me if something that she'd picked would be suitable for her mother. And then someone else asked me if the pair of jeans that she'd just tried on, because I was in the changing rooms, if they looked all right on her. So little things like that, yeah.
Yeah. What is that in people that are attracted and value your opinion in that regard? I mean, that's how they interpret it culturally, isn't it? What they really are experiencing is just a need to be around you. It could be about anything, right? They find any excuse whatsoever to come up to you and ask you about a card or a pair of pants or whatever the case is, but that's not really what they need. If you weren't there, they would buy it anyway, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I hadn't seen it that way.
Yeah. What they're in
The
need of.
radiation in her.
Yeah, they need that radiation. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
hadn't seen it that way at all.
Yeah.
That's
It's a hell of a service to humanity. All right, someone else. Pull. Yes, Molly. Did you? I think you're muted, my dear. Yep. We understand. We live in a world of meetings now where it's always to change the microphone, right? Wrong microphone.
This is my sign language. I'm telling you. I'm telling you my experience in sign language. No, just kidding. I did the Star Ruby. I read the paper, and I did the meditation. And I have to say, I was very pleased with myself for actually having held the vision, because usually I call it the monkey mind goes here or there, the dispersion. So I read the paper, I did the meditation, and I actually got sensation from it. And I was just very, very, it was magnificent. It was just a beautiful meditate. It was very beautiful. And and I was very pleased that I managed to actually get a result, as well as the bringing it into the world. I had a day. I was shopping, and I had such an overwhelming sense of light, love, and life in me about the guy that was taking. I ordered some fish, and it was like I just felt so just so kind of love. I felt the love that in myself towards that guy that was getting me the fish, as well as everybody else in the shop, in the store. So I thought that, well, this is a new sensation when I go in the store. So I thought that's and I could say it was the definition of light, love, and life in that. So yeah, I was very, very happy. I was very thrilled with the whole result of it. And it's a
Molly,
great.
do you know why these are important? Not light, love, and life per se, but exercises like this, where you're radiating something out to humanity or to the planet or to a tree. Do you know why this is important? Be selfish for a moment, okay? Think selfishly for a moment.
Okay, because it's my birthright.
Yes, it is.
Because it's in me.
How do they hire a CEO for a company?
Because they have the coatings.
Sure. That's
They
right.
have something like that. They have the ability. They have the radiation. They have the
Experience.
experience.
Right? Often, yeah.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at here in this regard is that you can think of the universe kind of like a giant corporation, okay? And it places people where they're useful. Right? It's not going to take the landscape person and put them in accounting necessarily, right? But the thing is that the landscaper could go to school for accounting and eventually get into that position. You see, and what we're doing in this is that we're training for higher positions in the universe.
Mm.
Yeah. If you can radiate light, love, and life, guess where you're going to end up someday? Yeah, running the department called, Star Ruby. You see? Because you're useful in that aspect of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And if you have a high degree of standards and a high degree of discipline about yourself, and a what they call will have and won't have areas, you might end up running Star Sapphire.
Hmm. Right.
All kinds of open positions in the universe. Right there.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Wonderful. All right. Good. That was a good extraction. Who wants to go next?
Pierce, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the roles and how they're connected with our true will. Like, when and how does the role become established? I'm just kind of curious, like, what is the connection between the role that we're playing for the earth and the path that we're on for our own personal development?
Hardly any, actually. The role of life for people is not your will, not your true will. It's the planet's true will.
Okay. So that's independent of the individual true will.
Yeah. It's the planet's true will to create a certain type of energy. And it needs all of these different ingredients in order to manufacture it. Just like, like the process of creating gasoline, for example, is very complex, isn't it? They crack molecules down and they add molecules to it, and they do this and they do that and the other thing. That's sort of what the planet is doing. She scrapes off a certain type of substance that humans generate when they're playing the role of life. That includes things like war. Yeah. War is the release of a bunch of that type of energy. Now, your life is sort of like this. This is your role of life. Let me draw it this way. This is your role of life. This is what the planet has in mind for you. Now, every once in a while, something outside of the planet, in other words, outside of the true will of the planet, will come along and it will knock you on the head. It'll bump you. And instead of being here, you, for a time, end up doing this. This is no longer your future. Now, what often happens is people forget that they were bumped on the head, and so then they go back into this because the gravity for that is very strong. Yeah? But when you're at this point here is the only time that you can make the decision to continue on a different path. One of your own choosing. That's kind of the way that it works. The planet's conscious. Of course, she's going to have her own true will as well. Do you know where yours comes from? Who can tell me the deeper, more esoteric meaning behind the self-chosen name thing that we often do? This will help to answer your question, Kimberly.
I mean, are you referring? I'm not sure if this is deeper or not, but creating the space for what you want to fill into it, opposed to what the masses in the day-to-day, kind of put upon. So your birth name is one that was given to you, and then you go through socialization and formal education, and it all gets put upon. Whereas in choosing a name, you're creating a new space to choose and create your own. And in some cases, if you're choosing a certain quality, clarity, for example, choosing that, so then it might be also a quality that you want to grow in oneself.
Yes, and that was the exoteric answer. Exoteric, easy to get to.
Hmm. Okay.
Can you go more? Must.
Maybe it's because the letters and the words have are channels of energy, and by choosing a specific letters, we can channel a specific energy into our lives to help us to grow or develop.
That's a mesoteric answer. Meso meaning a little bit further in.
Taking a position.
Keep going.
It's a will have, right? And it's saying, this is what I will have. And by definition, there's also won't have.
Kind of. I'm going to make you all work for this one, okay? You know, all of these gods throughout history, right? There's must be millions of them, aren't they? Where do they come from? Are they actually gods? Are they creational entities? Are they gods? What are they really?
I want to say energies.
Yes, absolutely. But where do they come from?
We create them.
Ha ha. There you go. Keep going.
Could we say gods are the best of something that creation can create, or the best of some aspect that creation can get to?
They are the best that someone could get to. Every god out there that has a name has behind it an event in history where someone with a whole lot of intelligence made it. Okay? Take Odin, for example. Odin was generated by a priest to be able to have this kind of entitized energy to be able to help the people, the Norse people. Okay? Same thing for every single one of them. But what it really was the spirit aspect of the priests themselves that did that. Okay? So that part lives on. In upcoming lessons, you're going to learn how to do this because it's extremely important to your development. But the idea is that you actually create something in the astral light that is you, but the more perfected version of you, right? Everything already developed. And then after that, you learn to step into it. Who here's done mumming back in the olden days of the Eamon? Yeah. Tell me about mumming. Tell these people who haven't heard about mumming what mumming is and how it happens.
No, you go first. Yes. Just go.
Okay. So it's calling over and stepping into a role to become the frequency and qualities of that role, of that position.
Okay, I'll accept that, right? Have you ever been successful at that? Have you ever had that feeling? See, listen, mumming is not acting.
Yeah.
There are people in America, especially in like Pennsylvania, your neck of the woods, right, that put on these mummers plays and all that, and they're actors. Mumming started in Egypt because they weren't called pharaohs, by the way, but the king in Egypt was generally considered a god. Right? Now, obviously, people saw the king eating and sleeping and passing gas and everything else that humans do. And you got to think to yourself, how is it that they could call that a god? Right? And the reason why is because of mumming. The king, when in function, was no longer George, Bill the king of Egypt. He became Ra. He mummed Ra, right, to perform certain things. That's the true nature of mumming, is actually taking that on yourself. Now, I need to ask you, for the people who have done mumming or understand this and the process involved, did you ever think to mum your future? Did you ever think to mum yourself? Mum your own better self? Mum development? My life name is Chris. You don't get Chris, right? When you're in these meetings.
Mhm.
I do a very specific thing where I step into Pierce and I mum that.
Mhm.
So, Kimberly, you asked a question as far as roles go. This up here is whatever your self-chosen aspect is. Okay. And it's really a lot easier to do to maintain that level as opposed to dropping back down to the cultural level. I'm going to spill the beans and I'm going to give you a little more details about an exercise that'll be coming up. Okay. You're going to create an Emian. Who knows what an Emian is? Have you ever heard the term? Okay. An Emian is a representation of your spirit that actually lives in the astral light. All right. Ra, for example, was an Emian by some priest that needed that. Yeah. Yahweh was an Emian. Okay. All of the gods were once upon a time the spiritual aspect of an actual human being that had the intelligence to do this. So in an upcoming lesson, you're going to learn something very, very powerful. You're going to create a God, but that God is the higher aspect of you, your spirit, your spiritual aspect. And you're going to be asked to spend a lot of time thinking about, if you were to design a God from scratch, what qualities would it have? Yeah. What would be its attributes, right? Because this is going to help you. And then you're going to learn how to actually project that out of yourself and then step into it and mum it. It's the only safe thing to mum, really, without at least 20-ish years of very deep esoteric training. Yeah, I will not ever ask you to go mum, something out of an Egypt book or anything. Yeah, it's not safe. Okay, because if you're successful with it, you got to understand that these Emians that were created, they need someone mumming them in order to live, in order to do. Yeah, they need a body. So they will fight for you.
Yeah.
You understand? They'll fight. They'll fight to be able to hang on to that. You have to have a whole lot of internal defenses to prevent that. Now, mumming your own self, your own future self, your own higher self, very safe, right? Because that is the divine aspect of you. The only safe thing to mum at this stage.
That's good.
Later you can.
Sorry, and how is the process of mumming?
How do you do it?
Yes.
Yeah. Hold on that, okay? Because you'll actually learn it. You'll learn it in upcoming lessons for you, okay? How to do it. Many of you know that. Well, we'll take it from a different aspect. You know Kung Fu, right? Kung Fu is an interesting art because they're always about the tiger or the crane or the eagle or the praying mantis or any number of things. It originated in mumming, you see, because, for example, you take a tiger. Humans are the only creature that doesn't have some sort of group spirit, if you know what I mean. Like a group spirit is what causes the birds to migrate. Why they all think the same way, they all do the same thing. There is an entity in the astral light that's responsible for kind of projecting it to do those things. Okay. And a bunch of them get together when a tsunami is coming and tell all the animals to go run to higher ground, for example, right? Long before we have any idea that something's coming. Humans don't have it. We had to disconnect from it eons ago. But we can get in touch with those things, right? And so an ancient, I don't think it really exists much anymore except for in very rare places. But in ancient China and Tibet, for example, they mummed, they would mum the tiger, and they found that they had all of the reflexes and strength that went with that. Yeah, it wasn't like studying a martial art. It was studying how to mum something and see how to become it, how to take on the essence of it and connect to it in the fullest way. That was mumming. It's an example anyway. Okay. Where are we? Kimberly, did that help at all? I kind of took a very tangential way to things, but the role of life is not your life.
Yeah, I guess what I'm understanding is that we have choice within the role that we play.
No, not really.
Because at the
Unless
same time,
you
you
become
also
more
said that we
conscious.
could step outside of our role.
You can get knocked outside of your role.
Okay.
It's almost impossible for someone to step outside of this. The gravity of it is too strong.
Okay.
Generally, something has to come knock you out of it. And I think if each of you do a bit of soul searching, as they say, you'll know what that was that knocked you out of that role of life.
Pierce, I think that sounds very, what's the right word here? Unlikely. Like the way you said, something's got to knock you out. In fact, it's far more likely than not getting knocked out. Everybody gets knocked out. You get knocked out every day. It all depends off that straight line that you're on. You can get knocked off of that line. There's an opportunity to get knocked off of that line every day.
You can if you're open to it, but I would argue that most people are not knocked off of that role of life every day.
Right. So there's, Kimberly's question was, do you have choice? That choice is whether you take that as a knock and take whatever comes your way as a knock and decide to change out of that track. The other thing that I wanted to add that I'm just going to interject is, the image shows that there is a huge deviation from that role of life, big deviation and then it's a straight line. It's never like that. That deviation is not that big, or it doesn't have to be that big. And it's rarely you get knocked off and you go straight. Often it's like you get knocked off and then you go down, come back, and then you back up. And
absolutely
so
right.
It's a wave. It's not a strat. It's not like you don't go knocked off on a completely different track. Nobody's that strong, like your peers are saying. Gravity is going to pull you down to some level, and then you're going to come back. If you intend, if you make an effort, that's where your choice comes in. So you do have choice. It's not like your destiny is all made and there's nothing that can happen no matter how hard you try. That's not true. Right? But there's a big force pulling you, and you have to make up your mind. And if that big, what is that, 80, 90 degrees too much, don't take that on. Take a little one, like take 5 degrees. Try that. Get into the habit of getting knocked out and doing different things. And then you can get knocked out bigger, and you'll stay knocked out. You'll not come back that easily.
Yeah, it's true what you say. It's small things. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a boulder falling out of the sky. But you're right. It is the small things. The other aspect to it is that you're the one doing it. Not you, not the you of you, but that spiritual, that divine aspect of you is the one thumping you on the on the head, right? And constantly trying to get you to be it. Because it can't live. It can't actually fulfill its function unless you merge with it and become whole. You're fractured, scattered. We've talked about this before, right? At every level of the ray of creation exists a version of you. It's not so much a matter of development, like, oh, now I'm sun level development. Now I'm star level development. It's when you consciously merge and you are lunar, planetary, and so on and so forth. You bring all of these aspects of yourself together. That is when you become whole. That's what development is. It's not climbing a ladder. It's gathering all of you. Good. Good extractions. All right.
Mm.
Let's do one more. Jeffrey, I want to hear from you again.
Okay.
I see it in your eyes anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to. I think I have a weave here from all the things we're touching on. So it started with the question of, how's it going with the lessons?
Yeah.
And the lessons and finding the eminent way in this time. I'm still processing, even just digesting the fact of it. Because we talk about these things, so let's start with getting knocked off. There was an event in my life when I was 18 that got me knocked off. And I just summarized the outcome of that event as, oh my God, I could have been an accountant. And the idea, of course, is that there was a straight and narrow path that was, assigned at birth, so to speak.
Sure.
And an event happened where, like, that accountant's path or doctor, lawyer, or whatever just wasn't it. And that led me to a time just before meeting the Eamon. And then within about a year, I met the Eamon. This was years later, but I started becoming kind of aware of, alternate ways. And then when I look at that, all right, so it was the knock off the path, but then somewhere along the way, I want to say maybe about 3 years after I met the Eamon, if you recall Leo's tape, I think it was Growing Up for a Second Time, and you choose to live an ordinary or an extraordinary life. And I had one evening, I listened to that tape, and I kind of I felt so confronted and so nervous, scared. And one of the message for those that don't have the reference, it's, the important thing is either choosing an ordinary life or choosing an extraordinary life. But staying on the fence is problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And that night, in a way that was visceral, I said I was scared, but I chose extraordinary. And somewhere, in little ways, there's choices and things we do, ordinary, extraordinary, whatever, and knock you off and get you on. But there was this large, that was like a key moment that everything then follows.
Yeah.
And we we're discussing roles. And within this path, I've had a knowing, I want to say somewhere in the last 15 to 20 years, like a clairvoyant knowing, that when I'm age 54, my role, my purpose, my thing will appear and be realized, which also happens to put me on 30 years on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
I turned 54 a few weeks ago. And what's been leading up and now, that role is finding me and pulling. And if you ask my personality, laying alone in bed at night, I don't want to do it. I just want to I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do it. And the truth is, you just have to get out of bed and it's pulling, right? Because of that extraordinary decision all those years ago, meeting myself. And I do sense there's a 30-year-old, for me, I feel like I know that I'll live to 84, that is still calling it forward. But when I do the detection of what's appearing and I ponder with, for me, leaving the Eamon originally was a trauma in and of itself. Finding this engagement I'm still marveling at it. But meeting the Eamon in the first place was incredibly extraordinary. And again, the role and how it all fits, but it's all like what's knocking on my door, what's pulling me, and just doing the detection around it. And so I even say with the lessons and the conversations I have on a routine, like this type of dialogue on a routine basis in business environments. And it's just happening, and people finding their way, and reaching out and say, hey, could we do a call? Is kind of mentorships and things like that.
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, again, ask my personality. I'd rather do other things, and yet I'm so nourished at the end. In the larger picture, you can't not.
Yes. Yeah. Right. I think what you said is very profound, because I think most people don't realize that it's the extraordinary is actually you. That's the real you. That's what's extraordinary. What's ordinary is all the fake shit that we pile onto ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And really, any one of you could be standing right here doing this right now. You really could. The only reason you're not is because you don't trust yourself. And I mean yourself, not, your personality. That higher aspect will come inform you, will come help. It does. It's got to get out of your own way, really. Yeah. But you all could be doing this. Because, the thing is that you're actually meant to know the truth of life, whatever that is for you. You're meant to know what it is. Might be different for me than for you, but it's not like there's nothing actively trying to hide it from you. Yeah. I love it. Extraordinary. Yes, I agree. And Sachin, I give you props, because somewhere along the line, without anything to do with me, you already discovered for your own life to do things differently. Yeah. I know you try to do things with the hand that wasn't, that's not your dominant hand, or you make things more difficult, and it keeps you more awake. I think it's brilliant. That's a good job. Where'd you figure it out? When did you figure it out?
2020, during George Floyd, when I started diving deep into the systemic racism in this country, kind of look into where that comes from and why that happens, and just an understanding of the patterns that we use, and a lot of digging around. I think the try different things, or try things that make you uncomfortable, probably started, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, when I read an article about how not to get old, how to keep your brain. The brain learns, brain goes, you stay alive, you stay fresh, you stay active if you grow new neural connections. When you grow neural connections by doing something that you haven't done before, whether that's trying a new strategy game, whether that's using your left hand to put your shirt buttons, whether that's stirring the pot with your left hand, or trying to brush with your left non-dominant hand. So that started, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, but I never really did anything much about it. And then George Floyd happened. I was unemployed for 4 months, and I was like, oh, this is why. And then that sort of just became just the way I live, so to speak. Like, I'm just always trying something different, like
good,
small, big, whatever scale.
I spent the majority of my voluntary time in childhood on my head, upside down, literally.
Doing headstands?
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I'd watch TV. I'd try to read books on my head. Something got in me, right? To be a little bit upside down with the rest of the world. Same thing. Even upstairs, we have a picture of me as about 5 years old, standing on my head, hanging off the couch upside down. Yeah, good. Okay. Thank you all for coming. I hope this was useful. It put all of you on the spot a bit more than you might have been anticipating, but this is your meeting. Yeah. So come come to it next time and think of what you can extract. Is that fair?
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
See most, if not all of you tomorrow.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
See you
And
soon.
Mark will follow your suggestion that you sent me an email as far as what we can do tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Great. Yeah.
All right.
Just
Ciao.
hang on. Just before we go,
Yeah.
that YouTube video link is so fitting with what has been said today.
Really?
I'll send it on to everyone else. I've been sitting here with a silly grin on my face all the way through
I
this
noticed.
meeting.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you see that video, it's only 7 minutes long. I think you'll probably end up with a silly grin on your faces as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Wonderful.
it's
Yeah.
so
Please.
fitting, isn't it?
Please
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. All right.
Awesome.
Be well, everyone. Ciao for now.
All
Thanks,
right.
Tom.
And,
Thank you.